So let's talk about what Gen Z really think about entering the world of work. Delighted to do another episode in my series partnership with Not Going to Uni. So let's start off with Laura. How are you doing, Laura?
Yeah, I'm not bad, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Let's look, Not Going to Uni are certainly friends of the podcast, but let's have a bit of an introduction about Not Going to Uni and then your role.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as Chris said, I'm Laura and I'm the head of marketing at Not Going to Uni. And as obviously we have been on this podcast quite a few times before, but we are essentially a recruitment marketing agency, just really helping large organisations as well as small organisations as well hire their apprentices, whether that's entry level jobs as well or courses, just basically helping young people find these kind of positions that they're looking for within early careers. And as part of that, we work with a lot of ambassadors. We have a network of over 40 ambassadors now, two of which are joining us on this call. I'm really pleased that they're here with us as well to tell their experience. But I think with our ambassadors, it's a really big part of actually helping our audience in terms of students understand what it really is like to go into the world of work from that kind of education background. Because it is like a really big jump, and we speak to students all the time about it. And I think it can seem quite scary that having ambassadors like Kira and Callie like kind of explain what that experience was like really just makes young people feel a bit more comfortable, I guess, and confident going into it. So yeah, I'm interested to hear what they both have to say.
Yeah, lovely. Well, a few months ago, we did have Connor in the studio, and we talked through some similar kind of topics, but it was really we got feedback straight from a WhatsApp group with the ambassadors. So I thought it's a great chance to get Kira and Callie on, just to hear it straight from yourselves, really. And so before we get on with that, let's have a brief introduction about yourselves. Let's start with you, Callie.
Hiya, I'm Callie. Yeah, so I'm an account manager at a PR company. We do PR and communications. I started out doing a level 3 digital marketing apprenticeship elsewhere, and then kind of used that wider experience to specialise in PR. So that's where I'm at now.
Good stuff. And how about yourself, Kira?
Yeah, so I'm a procurement lead and started off as a digital business apprentice, as a procurement associate as well, and sort of worked my way up to where I am now.
Lovely. Well, yeah. So thanks for joining, and you're somewhere nice, aren't you today, Kira? You're at a golf club.
Yes, I am actually at Mill Ride in Ascot, which is, yeah, it's lovely. I'll
Very
show you the
nice.
view as well.
Let's have a look. I like it.
It's
I like
very
it.
sunny as well. I'm quite tempted to have a gin, but on work hours, I've got to keep
Yeah,
it
yeah,
keep it
yeah,
keep
yeah.
it zen. But yeah, no, it's lovely. We're doing a charity day, raising money for one of our local charities, which we support in the business, which is lovely.
And Callie, you've got some interesting knickknacks in the background there.
Yes, I have. So we're quite competitive in this office, seeing who brings what back from holiday in terms of tat. So if you can find the tat shelf, there's always an eclectic range of things there that people find the most obscure bit of holiday memorabilia they can bring back.
Lovely, lovely. So let's start off with, you guys are very much at the start of your careers, and it wasn't that long ago since you were, you know, about to or trying to enter the world of work. Kind of, I suppose, in a way, maybe feeling like you're left to your own devices and going, right, get on with it. It's
Absolutely.
yours to do what you wish with. So, how did you feel about kind of entering or kind of leaving education, and kind of trying to find that first step in your career? I mean, so for yourself, Kira, that was when was that moment?
So for me, I don't know why, but growing up, university was just never really something that I like desired. Like I'd go, all my friends would be talking about university and saying how like they're so excited, or how,
Mm,
or I don't know, like, or even nervous about where they're gonna go. And I don't know why, but it was just always one thing on my mind that I never really, not necessarily considered, but I just knew it wasn't going to be my path.
mm,
So yeah, and I just knew that I was really wanted to make an impact, and I really wanted to make an amazing life for myself. And obviously, like, we're not there yet, but we're definitely like growing and growing, which I love. but yeah, so I think when I made the first move, if you like, was when I left secondary school, when my time was cut a little bit short because of lockdowns and COVID, but
Mm.
it paid off in the end, so that's all that matters.
And you kind of, you were, because of COVID, we were talking about it before. You said you didn't kind of, you felt you didn't really have the support that you could have done with at the time.
No,
Tell
no,
us a bit
not
more about that.
so. Yeah, not massively. I think at the end of the day, I don't think it was down to anybody individually or any schools or companies. I think it was one of those things where it was unusual circumstances. It wasn't necessarily that we woke up one day and everyone knew what to do. I think everyone was in the same boat where they were like, what on earth is going on? So I would never put the blame to any individual because I feel like collectively everyone was in the same position. However, it's just how I
Mm.
went around that and how I dealt with it, I think has got me to a good position where I am now. Um, Although I didn't have the people necessarily to tell me, oh, this is what you can do, this is what you can do, or etc. I sort of went around it a different route where I sort of was talking to people, getting advice, asking what they do in business, or researching YouTube. We have all these resources that are like ultimately free to us, and I can't like echo enough
Mm.
how important they are to actually like utilize what sort of resources we can access. So yeah, it was a
Mm.
lot of like sleepless nights just researching, really trying to educate myself because I feel like you don't get that sort of work life aspect side of things when you're in education. You don't understand what it is. I mean, my parents
Mm.
have both worked office jobs, and I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know what they did. Like, I knew that they worked in an office, but I didn't really know what came with that apart from they boss people around, and I thought, it sounds great. But ultimately, like, you don't get that exposure when you're growing up. In secondary school, it's
Mm.
very a one-sided thing. The traditional routes of becoming a doctor or being a teacher or something, and they're absolutely great, but there's definitely not enough exposure to other things, as a whole, I don't think.
Well, you mentioned something really interesting there in terms of like like going onto YouTube, and I've said before, like kind of huge from a employers marketing themselves. YouTube is such an underrated platform. It's
Definitely.
free for you guys to use, and if the content's there and you've got employers creating that content, then that's going to help you
No brainer.
and others in your situation, and they might end up even finding out more about the organization that's creating that content that sits on YouTube, that sits on TikTok, etc. What about yourself, Kelly? So, how did you find it uh, taking the first steps into the world of work?
Yeah, so for me, it was a bit of a weird one because I did my A levels and I was kind of just assumed I'd go to uni. Everyone around me did, and I was really lucky that my parents, they never said that's what you've got to do or funneled me in that way. They were very much like, well, just see how you go.
Mm.
And I got to the end of my A levels and I was so sick of being in education that I was like, I need a break. So I didn't go, and I potted off and I
Mm.
went traveling and I did a ski season, did all sorts of things, and thought, okay, now I'm ready to work. Now I'm back. I feel like I've got it out my system, and I just didn't even know where to start. It's really intimidating, and I think for me, it was like some of the jobs that we will do, and our kind of friends will do, don't even exist yet, and they didn't exist 4 or 5 years ago when I was looking for my first job. And now we've got AI coming into play and everything like that, and there's so much that's developing so quickly. And especially in the area where I work in kind of like digital marketing and PR and comms, it's changed so rapidly that I didn't even know where to start. And when I started, it was already evolving far quicker than I knew how to kind of jump on it and work out what to do. So
Mm.
yeah, it was really intimidating.
What's that intimidating kind of feeling? That's an interesting. What Tell us a bit more kind of about that. What was it that you weren't getting that was kind of made it feel intimidating for you?
I think it's a little bit linked back to kind of
What?
what Kira said in terms of you only know about very traditional jobs, which are great if you want to do a really traditional job like a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, all those sorts of things. But if you don't know what you're looking for. You can't start asking the questions until you even know what's out there. So I
Mm,
think having that visibility of if you like this, so if for me it was like if you like writing, what jobs can I do with writing? You know, if you like working with people, what jobs can you do working with people? And I think I didn't find that employers brought to the table how I could link my interests and my skills to a job I didn't even know existed. Whereas if I just saw the
okay.
job title, if I just saw, PR account executive, I didn't even know what that was. So I just would look straight past it. But
Mm,
if I knew, oh, I did, this A level, or I was really interested in this at school, and that would lead me down this path, I think I'd have found it a lot less intimidating. But when you're looking, you
mm.
just don't know.
Did you have like it was when you're at school have companies come in or try and provide this kind of information to you?
I don't really think so. I think my college in particular was very much push people down the route. Everyone had to apply to uni, regardless if you wanted to go or not. And I don't think
Mm,
the word, apprenticeship or just getting a job was even discussed. So I don't think they wanted to kind of expose you to the other options. So I don't, similarly to Kira, I don't feel like I had that support from where do you go after education next if you don't want to follow that path.
mm. And where did you where did you go out to find that information? It's a bit difficult when you say you don't quite know what you're looking for, but you started then, didn't you? So what did you do? Where did you go out to try and figure things out?
Yeah, so I figured I better start somewhere. So I went and looked for some temp jobs because I thought that'll give me a good experience of loads of different things. And I did do lots of random different temp jobs, and they varied. I found online, they kind of run Indeed, and they have their own pages and stuff, and you can sign up with a temp agency, and then they'll just say, right, tomorrow you're off to be a receptionist here, and then the next day you're off to be, in the car sales room here, and I really loved that because it gave me a really good insight into so many different things and also what I liked and didn't like. And then I ended up staying
Mm,
at one of my temp for about 4 months. And then after I went traveling, I said, oh, can I come back? And then I stayed there for another year. And that was in field marketing. So it kind of gave me that essence of, you work with loads of different companies. So it gave me that account management skill. And I knew that I liked working with clients then. And they just really invested in me and upskilled me. And then from there, I was like, I know I don't want to be in field marketing forever, but I like these skills that I've learned and I like certain aspects of the role. And so from there, I was like, right, I think I now need to get a qualification and kind of
mm,
be ready to take that next step. So I asked a lot of people I knew, kind of I thought I wanted to go into the marketing side of things a bit more, and then looked around and managed to get a digital marketing apprenticeship, which then definitely gave me the foundations to go from there essentially.
nice. So, Kira, you already mentioned that you've gone out and looked at free resources. You've been onto YouTube, to help you decide what you want to do. What is it you typically see from employers, or what you typically saw from employers when they were marketing themselves to you as places to work?
I think that's a really good question because honestly, I couldn't tell you anything that stood out to me, which is quite like, worrying in a way. But I think more so what I remember from when I was doing my research and like gathering these resources, it was mainly people like employees talking about their days or what they do. For example, even just something like as simple as on TikTok, people talking about their day in their lives or doing like videos and sort of showcasing what they do. I think I got a lot of exposure from that. But in terms of hearing it directly
Mm,
from the employer, I think there was very little of that. And I still think that there is, to be honest, or maybe they're not getting out the information to target Gen Z maybe as much or the generations that are sort of coming into work. So I never see them. Perhaps maybe that's why. Or maybe there are resources out there but not targeted to people that are wanting to come into work or wanting to find out all these different options that are available to them. So I think that's definitely something that I would want employers to do, to sort of target their audience a bit more thorough and not just one size fits all. Yeah, that's it. One size fits all. But yeah.
And what do the day in the life stuff? Do you find that was useful to look
100%.
at?
And I think this is something that I will like speak, and I would tell all companies that when you give someone, even in like when you're selling a product, for example, if you show someone exactly what they're going to get, exactly what it looks like, rather than showing a whole, like, professional Canva, but very corporate type of, I don't know, post, for example, then you're looking at it and you're like, okay, scroll. But when you see someone that's actually giving an insight into their day, it almost
Mm,
gives that element of exclusivity. Almost like, oh, like, am I meant to be seeing this? Or like, oh, how exciting! I can actually see what
mm,
this person gets up to. And I think at the end of the day, I don't know if it's just me, but I think we're all a bit nosy, and we all love to see like what goes on in the world. And I think it definitely does. Yeah,
yeah,
oh,
human nature,
100%.
isn't it?
And I
Definitely.
definitely think that that gives such a valuable insight, um, like to link in with even like UGC creators, how they're huge at the moment with companies, that even that links in that whole type of giving that exclusivity and offering that vision of what it is that you could be going into, or what it is that you could buy. What are you actually going to get from this?
Mm. Yeah, it's a good point. Really, I think it's, if content feels very natural to the other content around it, and it doesn't have that always have that sheen, that marketing gloss to it, then you are going to be naturally curious to see what it is. I think you're right. It's what marketers call as native content, isn't it? Native content, but it's native content isn't just content that sits on the platform. It's content that knows it's on that platform and kind of sits seamlessly amongst everything else. And Kelly, what about yourself? I suppose interesting from your angle because now you're in marketing yourself, aren't you? So, what did you see from in what did you see from employers when they were trying to market to you as a place to work?
God, that's a tricky one. I feel like, again, nothing massively stands out. What I would say is everything was quite formal.
Okay.
And if you're right at the start of your career, and well, not even, you don't even know where you're beginning with your career, it's intimidating and it can be quite difficult to feel like you can access that information if it is really formal and in that corporate speak, and it feels like it's for somebody else, that you're not the target market. If you read especially like a job ad that's really stuffy, you just think, well, I don't know what half of its words mean, let alone the job.
Mm,
But and I felt like I found that a lot, so I felt like I couldn't really relate to it. I thought, oh, that's not for me, I don't have that. But if people really scaled it back and just went through, this is essentially what you'll be doing, and if when you do start, you will be in a more junior position, and so I don't think you need to make out like you're reinventing the wheel over here.
mm,
Just get to the kind of point of what the job will be, but come across as approachable still. Because if you don't know if that's the job you want to be able to feel like, okay, I'll just drop them an email and ask them a few questions to find out a bit more before I decide whether I'm going to apply or
mm,
not. But if they don't seem approachable and they seem very kind of formal and corporate, then you're not going to be able to do that investigation because you're just not going to feel like you can access it and they're the right people.
mm. Yeah, it's interesting. Is that desire to want to come across as a professional organisation that then actually becomes a barrier because really, when you talk to most people who are working, no, they're human beings, like they were before they went to work. Just people, and I think more often than not, if you were to contact people and say, "Could I ask you some questions?" They'll time might be an issue, so they may not respond. But if time isn't an issue, then they're most likely to go, "Yeah, happy to answer questions you have if you want to call, whatever. Happy to help." So yeah, I think you're right. That thing about being coming across as a bit more natural and dare I say authentic, but just more approachable. I think is is really important. Laura, I mean, you've got great position because you working, not going to uni, but obviously you spend a lot of time with Callie and Kira and the other ambassadors. And so, what is it that what is it you think that employers should be focusing on when it comes to, right? Well, we need to hire people who are about to enter the world of work. What would you say to them?
I think it's interesting because all of the points that Callie and Kira have just said about like being authentic and posting day in the life videos and things like that, when we flip it on its head and kind of ask students, what is it that you want? A day in the life video is the one thing that they always say, like, no matter what, we can guarantee you that if we ask, like, what kind of content do you want to see, it's always at the top of the list. And I think that just shows employers that they need to be actually doing this kind of content. And obviously, from a not going to uni perspective, we try and aid and help within that through our not going to uni create services, and like we would actually go in and film that content for them, and that's great. However, they can also be doing that themselves,
Yeah.
and a lot of the young people that they are hiring would probably be more than willing to do so. Like people like Kira and Callie obviously create content for us, but I'm sure they'd be happy to do it for their organization as well. It's just it's about using the people you have, I think, to draw in the new candidates that you're looking for. And I think that just having this content that kind of shows what it is like to work at that place, but also the culture and things like that of the company are like things that just come up all the time of what students want to see. So employers really need to kind of be focusing on that to get the candidates in that they're looking for.
It's true, and it's not. It's kind of second nature to pick up the phone and just start filming something.
Yeah.
It's just, I think, very second nature. So it makes sense to tap into that for sure. And I think sometimes there's a bit of a hesitation, isn't there? Kind of, what if we let people loose to say, to do their day in the lives, well, we have less control. Well, it starts with trust. If you hide them in the first place, then there's surely got to be some trust there that they're going to be doing the right thing or not doing the wrong thing. More to the point, um, and not necessarily putting in place guidelines for what you mustn't do, but just creating some sort of loose parameters to saying that this is the kind of things that that we're looking for. But then otherwise, just trust your people
Yeah.
to do it, to start
I think
contributing.
Sorry, Chris, just to jump in, just thought of
Mm.
another point just around the fact that I think the young people that they've obviously hired in the first place have seen something within that company for them to actually want to work there anyway.
Exactly.
So using these people that one know how to use social media and film these videos already, but also have that kind of insight into why they wanted to work at this company in the first place. It's kind of a win-win. Why are you not going to use the people that enjoy working there and also know how to make the content? It's kind of a no-brainer, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And it's a modern day version of the photo shoot that gives you the picture of the person at work with a quote, next to them. It goes back to what you were saying earlier on about maybe having that the kind of content that maybe puts up a bit of a barrier, and you might even just scroll past. It's great. Look, I suppose final thoughts really now, Ari. So if we've got people watching, listening to this who are in the business of going, we need to put ourselves in front of Gen Z to make sure that we are seen as an employer, and also we want to make sure we get the right people. What one or two pieces of advice would you give them if they were going into their next meeting and thinking about what we're thinking about our next campaign? What advice, one or two pieces of advice would you give them? Kira, let's start with you.
I would say give off, well, have a think about what is it that you like, how do you want to come across to potential employees, what is it that's unique about your company, why should people want to work for you, and then make sure that you're actually showcasing this in your marketing and in your campaigning. And I think the key thing for me, if I was in a position to sort of tell companies about this, I would say, um like, be authentic. That is like one of the main things that people appreciate, especially nowadays. I think that transparent element of things, people really do value that, and I think that will really put you ahead of other companies if you do all of those things.
Great, cheers, Kieran. What about yourself, Callie?
Yeah, I'd just say make sure you're speaking to the audience that you want to reach. So if that's Gen Z, then make sure you're speaking their language as well. If you're kind of trying to reach a younger audience, a different demographic, you need to speak to them in a way that they can respond and relate to. Whether that's the platforms you use or the actual language you use, just make sure everything is consistent. And I think that consistency point goes through to the content you're creating as well, because if I'm going to look at a business and I might want to work for them, I'll go straight to their Instagram account. And if I see that they've got one post every 4 months, I'm a bit suspect of it. But if I can see that, okay, they did something really exciting like a team social on Friday, but then they showed a bit of normal life on Monday, great. It just gives a more well rounded and, like Kira said, authentic view of them. And so I think just kind of being consistent, speaking in a way that the audience you're wanting to attract can understand is just so important.
Yeah, nice. That thing about turning up regularly is important, isn't it? Only have to look at all the content creators out there on YouTube, on TikTok, where that turning up regularly is appreciated, and that turning up regularly also enables you to, you know, get the vibe, the rapport of that individual or that organization. So that thing about turning up regularly is really important, and actually tapping into the day in the life content, which is maybe lower production value, but sits very nicely along with other video content, is your chance then to be regular and to turn up regularly, and to be consistent, as you say. Good stuff. Well, we could chat for longer for sure, but I think you've got some golf to play,
Yeah.
Kira, and a gin in
Oh
a few
yeah.
hours' time. So we'll I think we'll leave it there. But thanks very much. Really appreciate it, and yeah,
Yeah.
see
Thanks
you
so
later.
much for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.